Iman here from Design by Iman, and today we're going to talk about common mistakes that people make when they're furnishing their space. I'm going to talk about their mistakes, but also some solutions. If you get a second, please smash the like button because it'll really help with my channel, and let's get right into it. So first up is the size of furniture. We want to make sure that the furniture fits the space. So first up, let's talk about furniture that is too small for a space. So here are some examples where on the left, you've got a dining table that is really just too small for this big dining area, and the space really does feel empty. Same with the one on the right. It's actually a beautiful room, but the table is just too small, so we need to create a larger table to make the room feel more grand. Here we have some desks and chairs, and honestly, it's okay furniture, but the room just feels way too empty. On the right as well, we've got just a single chair and a single desk with a rug, but they really need to put more furniture in the room to make it feel a little bit more cozy. And of course, we've got these giant bedrooms, but even with a king bed, the room just feels too empty. So they probably could have added a bench or some seating areas to make the space feel a little bit more cozy. So those were some wrong examples. Let's take a look at some examples of furniture sizes that actually fits the space. So here we have a center dining table with the proper dimensions on the left, and same thing with the one on the right. And honestly, it just fits the space. It has enough room to walk around, but not so much where you're just, filled with space. We don't want to create a dance floor in your dining room. Here we've got some offices that, again, they feel like the right size for the room. We've got both an L shape and a center desk. And when you have a little bit more room, you can add a piece of furniture like they did on the right, where you've got extra seating area in the corner. And here are some great layouts for bedrooms where you can see that both the bed and the rug fit the space, as well as the nightstands. There's enough room to walk over to the other side. Typically, if there's a little bit more room, you can add things like a corner chair or another furniture piece. So we talked about furniture that's too small for a space. How about furniture that's just too big for a space? So here on the left, we've got this oversized desk and oversized chairs, but the room is teeny tiny. You can barely walk around. And on the right, you've got a dining table with 4 chairs, but the space just feels so small for the table. I know we're dealing with small spaces, but going with an oversized basement sofa in a tiny condo is not going to help your case. You want to make sure that you're fitting the right size sofa in the right space. Both of these are too large for the room. And of course, bedrooms are getting smaller, but it's really difficult to fit oversized beds into small rooms. They probably could have changed the orientation in both of these cases. So either fitting a different bed size or changing the position of the furniture could have potentially helped, but these are again too large for the space. And for the correct examples on the left here, we've got a nice banquette with a dining table. Again, it's not a massive space, but it's the right size furniture. So if you do have a smaller space, think about using smaller pieces. So condo size furniture if you are working with small spaces. On the right, we have a queen bed. And again, it's not a large room, but they went with round nightstands instead of square to really just soften the lines a little bit and make the space feel a little bit larger. And here we have an option with upper cabinets in your bedroom. So if you are looking to add more storage space, you can still do that and still have the bed fit into the space rather than cramming in, both a bed and a chest of drawers. And on the right, we have a sofa and armchair combo for smaller living rooms. Again, you can go with condo-sized furniture if you are working with a smaller space. So now we've talked about furniture that's too big, too small. How about the positions of these furniture and where are those furniture pieces sitting? First, let's talk about some wrong examples. So here we've got really just a wrong layout for the room. So on the left, we have a bed in the middle of the room, but then we've got 2 chairs kind of sitting in the middle of nowhere on the side. And then on the second photo to the right, you have really just a big gap. It almost looks like a dance floor once again, where you've got a sofa on one side and chairs on the other. Again, this just doesn't fit the space. Here in both of these living rooms, the sofas are way too far from the TV. Again, it's sitting up against the wall. I would probably suggest moving the furniture up or just working with a completely different configuration. And on the right, you have furniture that doesn't really create a conversation area. One is in one corner and the other is in the far back corner. And here we have furniture that is positioned really just too far away from the rest of the living space. So again, when you do have a lot of space between your TV wall and your back wall, you want to think about moving that furniture up so that it creates a better conversation area and you can always use the space behind. Let's take a look at some right examples of good furniture layouts. So here on the left, we have a living room. Again, it just creates a nice balance. It does fit the space properly, but it's also off of the walls. And you can see in the right example as well, it's a more of a modern space, but there are gaps between the furniture and the back wall. And here we have a sofa, bench, and chairs, which really create a nice combination. They are in the middle of the room and the furniture pieces are all somewhat close together, so it really creates for a nice conversation. And you can see another example of it here, but just from a different angle. And a good layout in a bedroom is still having your oversized bed with maybe a bench, and then if you do have the extra space, you can always create a coffee or reading area with either 1 or 2 chairs depending on how big of the room you have. Next up, we have the size of nightstands. I'm sure you've seen some that are too big or too small. Let's take a look at some bad examples here. So on the left, we have really what's a console table being used as a nightstand. It's just way too big for the space. And on the right, you've got a really tiny room, but with nightstands that are just super oversized. A better example would be to go with something like this, where it's either a round nightstand that fits the space, you still have a little bit of room before you hit the wall. And here on the right, we have a square nightstand, which again is a little bit away from the wall, but fits the space well and has plenty of storage. So apart from the size of your furniture, the position of your furniture, maybe a wrong size nightstand, how about those rugs? How often do you guys see rugs that are just the wrong size for the space? Let's take a look at some bad examples. Here on the left, we have a rug that is way too small for the space. There's too big of a gap between the furniture and the rug. The rug really needs to sit at least under the front 2 feet of the space unless you're working with a completely different size. On the right, you've got a round rug, which again is almost sitting in the middle of nowhere. Round rugs can be awesome, but you want to make sure that there's not too big of a gap between the rug and the rest of the furniture. Now, it's not as common, but sometimes you'll also see rugs that are too large for a space. Here, this room is just drowning in a rug. You don't really get to see the floors at all. And so it would really have been better if they had gone just 1 size smaller to show off a little bit more of the floor, but also not to take up so much of the room with such a detailed pattern. On the right, we have no rug. It's not the best room, but the no rug doesn't really help either. And here are the correct examples of a good rug size. So here we have a sofa and a side chair, both sitting on the rug. And here are a couple more examples where your chaise is on the rug, and on the right you have about half of the depth of the sofa sitting on the rug, as well as the corner chair sitting on the rug as well. You just want to think about the big rule of thumb is the front of your furniture pieces should be sitting on the rug. Now, this is a general rule of thumb. If you are working with different shapes of rugs, like round, or it could be some sculptural sort of rug, there could be an exception to the rule, but a general rule of thumb is having those front pieces of your furniture sit on the rug. Next up, let's talk about art and its positions. Now, oftentimes I've seen art hung in really odd places, like this example here, where it's actually a half decent room, but the art is so low behind the chair. Or there's this piece over here, which is in a bedroom, but it's so far off to the right, really just sitting in the middle of nowhere. We've also got this basement where the art is hung so high off of this orange sofa, and it's not centered to the room. It really doesn't have any sort of purpose so high up. As well as in the dining room where the art is so tiny that it doesn't really do much for the wall at all. So what's a good example? Let's take a look. Here on the left, you have an oversized piece of artwork that fits nicely with the wall, and it's a good proportion to the sofa. You also have on the right 2 pieces of art which really form one big piece. Again, you want to go with something a little bit larger to take advantage of the wall space. You could also do a collection of frames. And on the left, you can go with something like this, where you have a collection of frames. Again, you want to take up a big chunk of the wall, or you can go behind the sofa, like on the right, with a triptych, which is 3 pieces of art that really form one large piece. So you've got this beautiful rug, you've got the beautiful art. How about lighting those up, and let's talk about some lighting. The wrong examples are these guys here. We have 2 chandeliers literally sitting in the middle of nowhere in a bedroom. I'm not sure what the builder was thinking when they built this, but they probably had a purpose for these lights, but then when you move in, the orientation just does not fit with the lighting. Here you actually have a pretty cool space. It's a little bit almost industrial, modern feeling, but the light is way too high off of the table that it really doesn't serve a purpose. So you want to make sure that that light comes way down. Here's another example of a dining room light fixture that is just hung way too high up that it really doesn't draw your eye to the room. So how do you hang your light? Here are some examples. On the left, you've got 2 pendant lights over a dining table. Again, it's low enough to light up the space, but not so low that you can't actually see the other person across from you. There are rules of thumb, so depending on the height of your ceiling, between 30 to 36 inches is pretty common. You could go as high as 42, but it really depends on the ceiling height above you. I would recommend holding up that fixture before they install it, or check with your designer. On the right, we have 1 linear pendant with these glass balls hanging off of it. And again, you can see that it's a lot lower down to light up the food and light up the table. And here on the left, we have a bedroom with 2 pendant lights. Again, they're not super high up, they're lower down so that you can actually use them for reading. And on the right, we have a chandelier above a bed, which again is at the right height where it's not going to interfere with you watching TV, but it'll still light up the space. Next up, my pet peeve is TV wires. I hate seeing wires and I see them all the time. Here are some bad examples of that. So here on the left, you actually have a half decent space, but you can see all the wires hanging out of the left side of the TV. And on the right, they tried to conceal it, but it really was a fail because you can see the cord plug right in. And again, it's not a bad space, but that TV wiring just does not look good. I see TV wires all the time on Instagram, and sometimes I want to message the people saying, I'm not even looking at what you're posting, I'm just looking at your TV wires. So please try to hide them. On the left here again, they tried to do a good job of it by using a TV stand to conceal it, but again, the first thing you see when you walk in is the wiring coming out down to the TV. The one on the right probably is a little harder because it's a part of a pillar and they mounted the TV onto the pillar. Again, there was probably a better way to conceal that, but that wire hangs right down. So what are the right examples and what can you do? If you can build a conduit, which is really 1 hole from your TV, which connects to another hole into your cabinet, and have your wires run into the wall, that would be the ideal scenario. So here are some examples. On the left, you have a TV with a credenza below, but there are no wires showing. On the right, you've got this amazing living space where all the wires are tucked behind the TV. All right, so next up, we're gonna be talking about multifunctional spaces and how to achieve them correctly. And I'll show you the wrong examples. So let's start with this example here on the left. We've got a working area, but in a dining area, and it really doesn't fit the space. We also have a workspace in a bedroom, but again, it's kind of used as a nightstand / desk, which again does not suit the bedroom. We also have a living room here on the left with a desk on the side. And here on the right, we have an office space kind of in the middle of nowhere. It really just does not fit into that spacing. Here are some good examples of multifunctional spaces and how to achieve them correctly. So on the left, we do have a living room or bedroom space, but we have an integrated desk where the desk and the TV fit seamlessly together. We also have a workspace on the right that faces out the window and you still have your TV, but again, because it's built in, it feels a little bit more streamlined and integrated. So overall, I don't blame you if you're trying to achieve multiple functions in one room. That's totally normal, but if you can try and do as many built-ins as possible, to make the spaces fit together, that will go so much further. Next up are the size of your drapery. So ideally you wanna be hiring a professional to install your drapery. If you're trying to do it yourself, great if it's possible, but here are some tips for you. So here are some wrong examples of drapery. On the left here, we've got drapery that's just hanging on the floor, and really it should be sitting just off the floor or just touching the floor. Here it's kind of pooling, creating a little bit of a mess at the bottom. And you can see the same example in the right, which I actually think they tried to do it intentionally, but I don't think it works for the space. So that pooling is a little bit oversized, and I think the drapes could have been made shorter. You can also see the same concept here from two different angles, where they've invested a lot of money in their curtains, but all you see is the pooling happening at the bottom, which actually takes up some walking space. So you want to make sure that it's really cut at the right level. And here are some good examples of drapery. On the left, you've got this beautiful matte black track where the drapery is just touching the floor. And on the right, you have a ceiling track where the shears, again, are just skimming the floor. And last up, another pet peeve of mine is picking the wrong grout color. You will spend so much time looking for the correct tile and then completely forget about the grout color. And the grout color is a big part of how your tile looks, so definitely pay close attention to it. Here are some wrong examples. So on the left, we've got this kind of Carrara sort of marble tile, but it was done with a very dark grout. Either that or it's dirty, but it does not look right. On the right, we have a subway tile, which in this situation, I do think a white grout would have fit better. I have seen white subway tile with black grout, and it can work really well in some spaces, but this one here is just a bit overwhelming. And the correct examples would be like this on the left, where you do have a marble floor. The edges of the tile are rectified, which means they're cut at a 90 degree. So you can join the two pieces of tile together and get them really, really close, so that grout line is about a 1/16 of an inch. So the grout is not the highlight of the room, it's the tile itself. And on the right, we have a white subway tile installed in a herringbone pattern with the correct grout color to match. So thanks for watching, and if you do see any of these common mistakes in your home, hopefully you can make some effort to, make the right changes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, and if you are looking to work with a designer, my information will be in the details below. See you on the next video.